Hey guys, this is Catfish here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to share with you the statistics of all PUBG mobile weapons, both in Classics and TDM. It's a pretty big deal. This is a long due video that you can use as a reference whenever you need to, or if you're ever just curious about how fast weapons shoot, how fast they kill, and how hard they hit. The reason this video exists is because I could not find a single official PUBG mobile weapon spreadsheet provided by Tencent themselves anywhere on the internet. At this point in time, I need to talk about TheBushka. For those of you who don't know who TheBushka is, he is a famous, well-established PUBG mobile YouTuber famed for his analysis and research into PUBG mobile weapons. His data is extensive, very thorough, and a total reflection of how proper research should be conducted. I watched his most recent YouTube video titled, "I Tested Every Weapon PUBG Mobile." And in it, he shares very eye-opening data on PUBG mobile weapons and calls out to other PUBG mobile scientists to try to figure out the huge problems in the game regarding extreme frame rate versus 90 FPS. After watching his methodology video, I just wanted to say that I'm a huge fan of his work, and if you're watching this TheBushka, I would love to work with you. There are some research techniques that I will share in my video that I'm sure will benefit your analysis and research, which will in turn benefit the PUBG mobile community as a whole. I'm sure that with our combined efforts, we can produce pristine data that the PUBG mobile community can truly benefit from. Let me know if you're down for that collaboration. So some of you viewers are probably asking yourselves, if TheBushka has done this research already, why are you doing it, Catfish? Why not just go watch his video or go to a spreadsheet and take his numbers on blind faith if you trust him so much? Well, that's exactly it. For those of you who are in a field of science, you will know that the most important thing in research is reproducibility of data. If nobody in the world can reproduce the numbers you provide in your research, then that means your data isn't worth anything because it doesn't apply to anyone else. So in this video, I will walk you through how I collected my data, why you can trust my numbers, and hopefully see if my numbers align with those provided by TheBushka. Let's get started. So right off the bat, this is what my data looks like. It's very involved, and I will walk you through how I collected or calculated all the numbers in this spreadsheet. For those of you who are not interested in research or proofs, then I will provide a link to my spreadsheet in the description below so you can go check it out without watching the rest of this video. Let's begin this journey into my research. How did I collect the rate of fire data? To be clear, all research was conducted on an iPad Pro 12.9-inch 2020 on extreme frame rate, using the global version of the PUBG mobile app downloaded directly from the App Store. This means that for 90 FPS players, the data of many weapons in my research won't apply to you, as 90 FPS weapons have drastically different rates of fire compared to 60 FPS weapons. Just as an example, the Vector fires much faster at 90 FPS compared to the 60 FPS version as confirmed by TheBushka. Rest assured, I plan on doing a 90 FPS rate of fire data collection, so stay tuned for that update. Also, let me tell you why using the global version of PUBG Mobile is important. I'm not sure whether you guys are aware, but there are actually many versions of PUBG Mobile. The Chinese version, the Korea-Japan version, and if I'm not mistaken, even an Indian version. While there aren't many differences between the versions, the Chinese version specifically differs quite dramatically with the global version in that many of the single tap weapons have no rate of fire limit. What does this mean? This means that an M16A4 or an SKS will fire as fast as you can tap it. If you use various techniques on the Chinese PUBG Mobile, such as drumming 2 or 3 fingers on the fire button, sliding your fingers across the fire button, or stacking 2 fire buttons very close to each other, you can literally tap these rifles so fast that they can fire as fast as a Groza. Yes, you heard that correctly. On the Chinese version, the M16 and the SKS can single tap as fast as a Groza. But why does this not work on the global version? That's because there is something called a rate of fire limit that is implemented on all single tap weapons. This means that no matter how fast you tap an SKS or an SLR or any single tap weapon, it will only fire so fast before the gun jams and the rate of fire decreases. For some weapons, it's easier to find this rate of fire limit, such as the single fire M16A4, and for other weapons like the SLR, it's much more difficult and requires skill to learn exactly how fast to tap before the gun jams and slows down.
Nice shot! The blue team is... Cover me! Clear! Half of the match is over, and the blue team is in the lead. Target down! The blue team has scored for the first time! Reloading! Target down! Killed! The blue team is unstoppable! Killing spree for the blue team! Nice shot! Reloading!
And actually, this is another reason why I'm bringing this up. Many times, I would receive comments on other videos telling me that I tap slowly on my SKS compared to Chinese conquerors. For me, that's a shake my head moment because what these commenters don't realize is that the SKS on the global version has a rate of fire limit of 10 taps per second, or 0.1 seconds per shot. You literally cannot tap faster because if you do, the gun jams and you will only end up firing 7 or 8 shots per second instead of the maximum 10. So in many ways, the global version of PUBG is much harder for us DMR users because it's not about mashing the buttons, it's more about finding that perfect tapping rhythm so that your spam tapping doesn't go over that 10 tap per second limit. Because in my SKS video, I do tap exactly 10 times per second, that objectively makes me the fastest SKS tapper in the world among other players who can also tap at 10 times per second. Alright, so with that out of the way, I went into the PUBG Mobile training room and picked up a weapon from the table of weapons provided. I then held down the fire button to allow the weapon to empty its magazine and moved on to another weapon, repeating the cycle with all weapons and recording the entire process using iPad Pro's built-in screen recorder. The screen recording is recorded at 1080p and 60 FPS, the same frame rate as the extreme frame rate in PUBG Mobile. The unedited footage is then imported into iMovie, where I then slowed down the footage by a time dilation factor of 1/8, also known as 0.125x speed. Simply put, my original raw footage is now playing in iMovie at 1/8 or 0.125 times the normal speed. For some weapons that have large magazines or slow rate of fire such as the DP28, I sped up the footage to 1/4 or 0.25 times the normal playback speed. This process allows for the extremely precise capturing of the exact frame when the weapons fire the first and last shot. I then imported a screen recording of the iPad's stopwatch app running and synchronized the two videos so that the start of the stopwatch will correlate exactly to when the first bullet is fired from each weapon. I then recorded the exact time when the last bullet is fired, taking extreme care to look at the magazine bullet count provided in the game to identify the exact frame when the magazine count drops to 0. This measured time is then divided by the time dilation factor and the number of bullets in the magazine. For example, the Thompson SMG took 19.08 seconds to fire 30 rounds at 0.125 times speed. This means that 19.08 seconds divided by 30 then divided by 8 will reveal to us the time it takes for the Thompson to fire one bullet at 1 time speed. That number turned out to be 0.0795 seconds per bullet. Again, that's 0.0795 seconds per bullet. If we take the inverse of this number, or 1 divided by that number, we will know how many bullets the Thompson fires in 1 second. It's basic mathematics. That number is roughly 12.58 rounds per second. As another example, the Groza took 19.2 seconds exact to fire 30 rounds at 0.125 times speed. 19.2 divided by 30 divided by 8 is exactly 0.080 seconds per bullet, or exactly 12.5 bullets per second. This is a good sign that my research is accurate and precise, because in the PUBG Mobile PC version, 0.080 seconds per bullet just happens to be the exact same rate of fire for the PC version of the Groza. I think that's more than just a coincidence. This process was repeated for all weapons and is advantageous to previous studies of ROF for 3 reasons. 1. It allows for the extremely precise collection of data, as slowed down footage is much easier to frame analyze than footage playing at normal speed. 2. Time dilation allows for much more statistically significant values, as numbers divided upon other numbers produce more significant digits to work with. And 3. Recording the time it takes for a gun to empty its magazine, then dividing the total time by the number of bullets is much more statistically significant than finding the small fraction of a second between 2 consecutive shots, as the result of my method is essentially an average of a large sample of bullets. In other words, recording the time it takes for a gun to shoot 30 shots, then dividing that time by 30 gives you the average time it takes for a weapon to fire 1 bullet, which is much more statistically significant than just 2 shots. To confirm that my numbers are accurate, I compared my numbers collected using the iPad stopwatch app against a real-life watch recorded at 60 FPS, because stopwatch apps skip numbers and only provide you with your actual time if you can stop it at the right time. My real-life stopwatch, displaying a 19.19 seconds for the Groza compared to the 19.20 on my iPad's stopwatch app, further confirms that my method is reproducible and very accurate. And that is how I collected my rate of fire data. Moving on to damages, the TDM weapon damages were calculated by firing a single shot at the naked, unprotected chest of a volunteer, who then kills me. Right now, these volunteers are my YouTube fans who are more than happy to participate in one of my YouTube videos. As I die, the damage done to the enemy from that single shot is displayed in a damage feed at the bottom right corner of my screen. That damage is recorded, and the process is repeated for all weapons available in TDM. For some of you with sharp eyes, you will immediately notice that some weapons in TDM, such as the SKS and the SLR, are buffed from their classic counterparts, while other TDM weapons, such as the AKM and M416, do the exact same damage as their classic counterparts. Classic weapon damages were calculated via a 7-day room card courtesy of my clanmate Sarge, as well as a group of trusted clanmates. Some weapons like the QBU, QBZ, MP5K, and G36C only appear on certain maps, so it was necessary for my clanmates and I to go into every map to test out the weapons. Once again, I will pick up a weapon, shoot it once at the naked chest of a volunteer, and after the game, you can see that only 1 shot has been fired at the chest in the detailed statistics provided after the match, and that the damage of the weapon is written to the left. I have gone ahead and did this with literally every weapon in PUBG Mobile, providing everyone with the official damage data of all PUBG Mobile weapons, including melee and airdrop weapons. For the sake of truth and transparency, all base damages were collected by shooting a naked chest except for 3 weapons. That would be the crossbow, the M24, and the AWM, which had to be reverse calculated after shooting someone wearing a level 3 vest in the chest. These weapons were just too powerful, and shooting a naked chest will only result in the weapon doing 100 damage, one-shotting the person instead of their true maximum base damage. Using all the damage data we collected, damage per second, or DPS, is simply calculated by multiplying the bullets per second by the damage per bullet. As you can see in this chart, the fastest killing weapon in the game in terms of DPS is the TDM version of the SLR, which literally does 34 extra damage per shot compared to the classic SLR, resulting in a monstrous DPS of 920. This was calculated by simply multiplying 92 damage per shot by 10 shots per second to arrive at 920 damage per second. This means that in TDM, it is perfectly possible to consistently wipe an entire level 2 enemy squad with just 8 shots in less than a second, specifically 0.8 seconds. Let that sink in for a minute. 2 shots per kill, 8 shots to kill a team in less than a second. The next part is a bit more technical. How much damage do these weapons do to level 1, level 2, and level 3 vests? We know that a level 1 vest has 30% damage reduction, a level 2 vest has 40% damage reduction, and a level 3 vest has 55% damage reduction. For example, this means that if you get hit by a bullet that does 100 HP worth of damage, wearing a level 1 vest will mean that you only take 70 HP of damage, leaving you with only 30 HP left. Wearing a level 2 vest will leave you with 40 HP left, and a level 3 vest will leave you with 55 HP left. We'll call this damage that you take while wearing a vest the vest damage, and we'll call the actual maximum damage of the bullet against a target wearing no protection the base damage. So, what this means is, in order to find out how much damage you will take wearing these 3 different kinds of vests, you simply do base damage times 0.7, 0.6, and 0.45 for level 1, level 2, and level 3 vests respectively. As you can see here, I have done that for all the weapons here. Using this data, we can next calculate how many shots it takes to kill someone wearing these vests. And let me tell you why this data is different, but not better than DPS data. While DPS is not a true measure of how fast a gun can kill an enemy, DPS, however, is a very flexible number that applies to all kinds of targets and scenarios. Specifically, DPS is valuable for many situations not involving a single enemy target. In a 1v4 solo versus squad situation, DPS values are important to consider for situations involving an enemy team that corner and rush you all at the same time. Other situations include gunfights involving breakable cover such as cars. If an enemy is hiding behind a vehicle, high DPS weapons will be able to explode the vehicle quickly, potentially killing the enemy before he backs away from the vehicle's explosive radius. Yet another situation is a car fight. In this scenario, all else being equal, the squad with the higher DPS weapons will be able to either explode the enemy car or kill the enemy squad faster than being blown up themselves. However, like I said, damage per second is not time to kill. So how do we calculate time to kill? At this point, I need to highlight that in TDM, a player has 120 HP, which is 20 HP extra compared to the standard 100 HP in classic games. This discrepancy is easily seen whenever you successfully kill a player and then immediately die right afterwards. You can see that in the damage feed at the bottom right corner of your screen, it states that you have done 120 damage to the enemy you just killed. Therefore, if you are calculating time to kill for TDM games, simply do 120, which is your total HP in TDM, divided by the vest damage, and use the ceiling function in Google Sheets to round up your quotient to the next highest whole number. However, if you're calculating time to kill for classic games, you must do 100 HP divided by the vest damage and similarly use the ceiling function in Google Sheets to round up the resulting quotient to the next highest whole number. The reason we use the ceiling function to round up our numbers is because you can't shoot someone 2.1 times. Bullets are discrete units, meaning you can only shoot 2 or 3 times, but not 2.1 times. In this case, if the data shows that a gun requires 2.1 shots to kill someone, that number will be rounded up to 3 even though the second shot would bring the enemy down to a very low HP. And this hidden data is another example of why DPS is still a very useful and flexible number. DPS calculations would not have hidden this very crucial data, but in time to kill calculations, regardless of whether you bring an enemy down to 30 HP or even 1 HP with a few shots, if your gun requires an extra shot to kill, then that drastically changes the kill speed of a weapon. So in conclusion, DPS is a very important factor to consider, especially if you're fighting a squad of enemies that are fully boosted and have HPs that fluctuate throughout the gunfight, which is actually a very common situation.
Says it takes me. Oh man.
Moving forward, once we have the shots to kill data, the time to kill for each vest is simply calculated by multiplying the bullets to kill by the time per bullet in terms of seconds. For example, it takes the TDM version of the SLR 3 chest shots to kill an enemy wearing a level 2 vest. Because the SLR fires 10 bullets per second, that means it fires 1 bullet every 0.1 seconds. Thus, 0.1 times 3 is 0.3 seconds, as you can see in the graph. At this point, I will also point out that in my spreadsheet, I have 2 distinct pages. I realized that since in TDM, players have 120 HP, not 100 HP, you cannot compare classic weapons and TDM weapons side by side since they belong to very different modes. Thus, I created a second page which shows the exact same data but for TDM weapons instead of both classic and TDM weapons. This second page will be very useful for those of you who enjoy doing 1v1s with friends or plan on participating in ranked TDM. Regardless, I still included TDM weapons in the first page so that people who are interested in hypothetical situations or arbitrary comparisons like me can have somewhere they can go to compare weapons of different modes that will never encounter each other. So, let me explain how to read the first page of my spreadsheet. Now that I've explained how I arrived at each number in my chart as well as their significance, let me explain how to read my chart. While TDM weapons and their classic counterparts always have the same rate of fire, the blue rows are TDM weapons that differ more than 0.4 damage per bullet compared to their classic counterparts. The reason why I set the number to be 0.4 is because what I discovered is that in TDM, the M416 actually does 41 damage a shot. However, in Classic, the M416 does 40.9 damage per shot. Looking at other weapons, I discovered that in TDM, the damages are rounded up and down. Weapons in Classic that deal damage less than 0.5 to the next whole number will be rounded down in TDM, while other weapons that deal more than 0.5 to the next whole number in Classic will be rounded up to the next whole number in TDM. As such, many weapons like all the ARs do not deserve blue rows because it can just be assumed that they deal the same damage in TDM compared to Classic. It's just that in TDM, the damages are displayed with whole numbers instead of with decimal digits. So again, blue rows are rows where the TDM weapons deal drastically different damages compared to their Classic version. At this point, those of you with sharp eyes will notice that in TDM, the Groza is actually nerfed, dealing less damage than its classic counterpart. Moving on, the red rows are simply classic airdrop weapons and are colored red just for you to spot them better. And white rows are simply classic non-airdrop weapons with damage per shot that do not differ with their TDM counterparts. Unfortunately, all non-DMR single-tap weapons like pistols, melee weapons, and bolt actions were temporarily given a 1 as a firing rate just for rudimentary damage per second calculations. In future steps, I will make sure to find an objective way to calculate the firing rate of these single-tap weapons. Who knows? If any of you viewers have any ideas on how I could objectively test the maximum possible firing rate of these pistols and bolt actions, please let me know down in the comments. Also, shotguns were skipped temporarily as their damages are distance dependent and also dependent on how many pellets hit the target. And I'm finally done! I want to give a big thanks to Sarge, Jellyfish, Hutman, and 4-Line Skull, among others from my clan, for helping me with this research. I also want to thank my fans for volunteering to be shot by me in TDM and for making this video possible. This research took a very long time to do, and there are a few limitations in this research that I want to make transparent to everyone. One, I still haven't done the headshot damages yet, so stay tuned for that. Also, because all the data we're calculating using 60 FPS, that means the firing rate as well as the resulting damage per second calculations will only apply to people who are still using 60 FPS to play PUBG Mobile. In future studies, I will run the exact same experiment on 90 FPS to provide everyone with the much needed 90 FPS weapon data. I sincerely hope you found this video informative, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you hated it, please let me know down in the comments how I can improve my next video. If you want to join my super friendly clan, either because you want to play with me on a regular basis, or because you want to meet very skilled players that are also very friendly, then please check out my description for more info. If you're looking for friends to play with, or if you just want to hang out with people, check out the Catfish Discord. Alrighty? Thank you guys again, my name is Catfish, and I'll see you guys next time.